Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to my channel. Greetings, viewers. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of water margin in this video. Water margin is one of the earliest Chinese novels written in vernacular Mandarin. It is one of the 4 classic Chinese novels and is attributed to Shi Nai'an. It is also translated as Outlaws of the Marsh and All Men Are Brothers. The story, which is set in the northern Song dynasty around 1120, tells of how a group of 108 outlaws gathers at Mount Liang or Liangshan Marsh to rebel against the government. Later they are granted amnesty and enlisted by the government to resist the nomadic conquest of the Liao dynasty and other rebels. While the book's authorship is traditionally attributed to Shi Nai'an, the first external reference to the novel only appeared in 1524 during the Jiajing reign of the Ming dynasty, sparking a long-lasting academic debate on when it was actually written and which historical events the author had witnessed that inspired him to write the book. The novel is considered one of the masterpieces of early vernacular fiction and Chinese literature. It has introduced readers to many of the best-known characters in Chinese literature, such as Wusong, Lin Chong, Han Jinlian, Song Jiong, and Lu Zixin. Water margin also exerted a significant influence in the development of fiction elsewhere in East Asia, such as in Japanese literature. In the following section, we'll be immersing ourselves in the captivating world of historical context and development. Water margin is based on the exploits of the outlaw Song Jiong and his 108 companions, the 36 heavenly spirits and the 72 earthly demons. The group was active in the Huainan region and surrendered to the Song government in 1121. They were recorded in the historical text History of Song in the Annals of Emperor Huzong of Song, which states, Zhang Shui's biography further describes the activities of Song Jiong and the other outlaws, and tells they were eventually defeated by Zhang. Folk stories about Song Jiong circulated during the Southern Song. The first known source to name Song Jiong's 36 companions was Miscellaneous Observations from the Year of Guixin by Jumi, written in the 13th century. Among the 36 are Lu Juni, Guan Sheng, Ren Weioza, Ren Weou, Ren Weoki, Lu Tang, Huo Rong, and Weiyong. Some of the characters who later became associated with Song Jiong also appeared around this time. They include Sun Li, Liang Zi, Lin Chong, Lu Zixin, and Wusong. A palace memorial by Hu Meng, included in the History of Song, states, Song Jiong and 36 others cross Qi and Wei, the central belt of the North China Plain, at will. Government troops number tens of thousands, but no one dares oppose him. His abilities must be extraordinary. Since we also face plunders by Fang Lo and his outlaws from Qingxi, why not grant Song Jiong and his men amnesty and request them to lead a campaign against Fang Lo to redeem themselves? A direct precursor of water margin is old incidents in the Yuan period of the Great Song dynasty, which appeared around the mid-13th century. The text is a written version of storytellers' tales based on supposed historical events. It is divided into 10 chapters, roughly covering the history of the Song dynasty from the early 11th century to the establishment of the Southern Song regime in 1127. The 4th chapter covers the adventures of Song Jiong and his 36 companions, and their eventual defeat by Zhang Shui. Versions of some of the stories and characters in Water Margin are clearly visible, including Yang Zi sells his precious saber, robbing the convoy of birthday gifts, Song Jiong kills Yan Poxi, and fighting Fang Lo. Song Jiong and his outlaws are said to operate in the Taihang Mountains. Stories about the outlaws became a popular subject for Yuan dynasty drama. During this time, the material on which Water Margin was based evolved into its current form. The number of outlaws increased to 108. Even though they come from different backgrounds, and include scholars, fishermen, imperial drill instructors, officers, and others, all of them eventually come to occupy Mount Liang or Liangshan Marsh. Let's now shift gears and explore author's inspiration and dates through a critical lens, uncovering its strengths and weaknesses. While the book's authorship is attributed to Shi Nai'an, there is an extensive academic debate on what historical events the author had witnessed that inspired him to write the book, which forms a wider debate on when the book was written. The first external reference of this book, which dated to 1524 during a discussion among Ming dynasty officials, is a reliable evidence because it presents strong falsifiability. Other scholars put the date to the mid-14th century, sometime between the fall of the Mongol-ruled Yuan dynasty and the early Ming dynasty. Both the Jiajing reign of the Ming dynasty and the closing years of the Mongol-ruled Yuan dynasty eras were marked by a chain of rebellions, which confused scholars a lot as to which of the two inspired the author, and hence when was the book written. The proponents of the Yuan dynasty argued that water margin became popular during the Yuan as the common people, predominantly Han Chinese, resented the Mongol rulers. The ambivalence persisted into later times, and the Chongzhen emperor of the Ming dynasty, acting on the advice of his ministers, banned the book. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting plot and exploring its implications in greater detail. The opening episode in the novel is the release of the 108 spirits imprisoned under an ancient stele-bearing tortoise. The next chapter describes the rise of Gao Qiu, one of the primary antagonists of the story. Gao abuses his status as a grand marshal by oppressing Wang Jin. Wang's father taught Gao a painful lesson when the latter was still a street-roaming ruffian. Wang Jin flees from the capital with his mother, and by chance he meets Shi Jin, who becomes his apprentice. The next few chapters tell the story of Shi Jin's friend Lu Zishan, followed by the story of Lu's sworn brother Lin Chong. Lin Chong is framed by Gao Qiu for attempting to assassinate him, and almost dies in a fire at a supply depot set by Gai's henchmen. He slays his foes and abandons the depot, eventually making his way to Liangshan Marsh, where he becomes an outlaw. Meanwhile, the original seven, led by Chao Gai, rob a convoy of birthday gifts for the imperial tutor Jiajing, another primary antagonist in the novel. They flee to Liangshan Marsh after defeating a group of soldiers sent by the authorities to arrest them, and settle there as outlaws with Chao Gai as their chief. As the story progresses, more people come to join the outlaw band, including military personnel and civil officials who grew tired of serving the corrupt government, as well as men with special skills and talents. Stories of the outlaws are told in separate sections in the following chapters. Connections between characters are vague, but the individual stories are eventually pieced together by Chapter 60 when Song Jiong succeeds Chao Gai as the leader of the band after the latter is killed in a battle against the Zheng family fortress. The plot further develops by illustrating the conflicts between the outlaws and the Song government after the Grand Assembly of the 108 Outlaws. Song Jiong strongly advocates making peace with the government and seeking redress for the outlaws. After defeating the imperial army in a great battle at Liangshan Marsh, the outlaws eventually receive amnesty from Emperor Huzong. The emperor recruits them to form a military contingent and sends them on campaigns against invaders from the Liao dynasty and rebel forces led by Tianhu, Wang Qing and Fang Luo within the Song dynasty's domain. Although the former outlaws eventually emerge victorious against the rebels and Liao invaders, the campaigns also lead to the tragic dissolution of the 108 heroes. At least 2/3 of them die in battle, while the surviving ones either return to the imperial capital to receive honors from the emperor and continue serving the Song government, or leave and spend the rest of their lives as commoners elsewhere. Song Jiong himself is eventually poisoned to death by the four treacherous ministers Gao Qiu, Yang Jian, Tong Guan and Kai Jing. Let's now shift our focus to characters and explore the ways in which it shapes our perspective. The 108 heroes are at the core of the plot of Water Margin. Based on the Taoist concept that each person's destiny is tied to a star of destiny, the 108 stars of destiny are stars representing 108 demonic overlords who were banished by the deity Shangdi. Having repented since their expulsion, the 108 stars are accidentally released from their place of confinement and are reborn in the world as 108 heroes who band together for the cause of justice. They are divided into the 36 heavenly spirits and 72 earthly fiends. In this section, we'll be shedding light on Table of Chapters and its impact on our understanding of the subject. This outline of chapters is based on a 100 chapters edition. Yang Dingzhen's 120 chapters edition includes other campaigns of the Outlaws on behalf of Song Dynasty, while Jin Shenton's 70 chapters edition omits the chapters on the Outlaws' acceptance of amnesty and subsequent campaigns. Chapters Main Events 1 Marshal Hong releases the 108 spirits to the rise of Gaoqiu, the story of Shi Jin, the story of Lu Zishan, the story of Lin Chong, the story of Yangzi, the stealing of the birthday gifts by the original 7, the story of Song Jiong, the story of Wu Song, the story of Horong Song Jiong's encounters in Jianchao, the story of Shi Xiu and Yang Zhong, the 3 assaults on the Zhu family village, the story of Lei Heng and Zhu Tong, the outlaws' attack on Gazenchao, the search for Gongsun Xing, the first imperial assault on Liangshan Marsh led by Hian Thuo, the outlaws' attack on King Tao, Hian Thu's defection to Liangshan, the outlaws, led by Gongsun Sheng, attacked Mount Liang 60, the first assault by the outlaws on the Zheng family village, the death of Chao Ge, the story of Lu Juni, the outlaws attacked Daning Prefecture, the second imperial assault on Liangshan Marsh led by Guansheng 67, Guansheng defects to Liangshan, the third imperial assault on Liangshan Marsh led by Shantingdi and Wei Dingzhou 68, the second assault by the outlaws on the Zheng family fortress. The outlaws attacked Dongping and Dongchang prefectures, the Grand Assembly, the funny and lethal antics of Liku Emperor Huzong offers amnesty for the first time, the fourth imperial assault on Liangshan Marsh led by Tongguan, the fifth imperial assault on Liangshan Marsh led by Gaoqiu, the outlaws are granted amnesty, the Liangshan heroes attacked the Liao invaders, the Liangshan heroes attacked Fangluo 100, the tragic dissolution of the Liangshan heroes. The extended version includes the Liangshan heroes' expeditions against the rebel leaders Tlon Hu and Wang Qing prior to the campaign against Fangluo. Other stories are told, such as the heroes fighting the Jurchen-ruled Jin dynasty or moving to Siam. Let's now shift our focus to reception and themes and explore the ways in which it shapes our perspective. Water Margin, praised as an early masterpiece of vernacular fiction, is renowned for the mastery and control of its mood and tone. The novel is also known for its use of vivid, humorous and especially racy language. However, it has been denounced as obscene by various critics since the Ming dynasty. Susan L. Mann writes that the desire for male camaraderie is far from a mere plotline, for it is a basic theme of this and other classic novels. She places the novel's male characters in a tradition of men's culture of mutual trust and reciprocal obligation, such as figures known as the Chinese knight-errant. Sima Qian, the Han Dynasty historian, devoted a section to biographies. Their words were always sincere and trustworthy, and their actions always quick and decisive. They were always true to what they promised, and without regard to their own persons, they would rush into dangers threatening others. She finds such figures in this and other novels, such as Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Journey to the West, all of which dramatized the empathic emotional attraction between men who appreciate and play off against one another's complementary qualities. Licentious and treacherous women are another recurring theme. Modern critics have debated whether Water Margin is misogynistic. Most beautiful women in the novel are depicted as immoral and cruel, and they are often involved in schemes against the protagonists. Among them is Pan Jinlian, the sister-in-law of Wusong, who has later become an archetypal femme fatale and one of the most notorious villainesses of classical Chinese culture. On the other hand, the few good women in the story, like Sun Erniang and Gudesa, are not particularly noted for their beauty, or are even described as being plain or ugly. The leader of the outlaws, Song Jiong, admonishes, "Any outlaw that meddles with women is contemptible." Critics offer various explanations for Water Margin's prejudice against women. Most common among modern Chinese critics is the patriarchal society of the Imperial China. Professor Sun Shu of the Chinese University of Hong Kong argues that the authors of Water Margin intentionally vilified women in order to discipline their would-be outlaw audiences. As we move forward, let's uncover the untold stories and fascinating intricacies of authorship. Since fiction was not at first a prestigious genre in the Chinese literary world, authorship of early novels was not attributed and may be unknowable. The authorship of Water Margin is still in some sense uncertain, and the text in any case derived from many sources and involved many editorial hands. While the novel was traditionally attributed to Shi Nai'an, of whose life nothing is reliably known, recent scholars think that the novel, or portions of it, may have been written or revised by Wu Guanzhong, the author of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Other contenders include Shi Hui and Gu Kun. Prepare yourself for an in-depth analysis of Shi Nai'an in this section. Many scholars believe that the first 70 chapters were indeed written by Shi Nai'an. However, the authorship of the final 30 chapters is often questioned, with some speculating that it was instead written by Wu Guanzhong, who may have been a student of Shi. Another theory, which first appeared in Gao Rus Beichuan Shazi during the Ming dynasty, suggests that the whole novel was written and compiled by Shi, and then edited by Wu. She drew from oral and written texts that had accumulated over time. Stories of the Liangshan outlaws first appeared in old incidents in the Yuan period of the Great Song dynasty and have been circulating since the Southern Song dynasty, while folk tales and opera related to Water Margin have already existed long before the novel itself came into existence. This theory suggests that Shi Nai'an gathered and compiled these pieces of information to write Water Margin. As we transition to the next segment, let's unravel the mysteries surrounding Wu Guanzhong and gain a fresh perspective. Some believe that Water Margin was written entirely by Wu Guanzhong. Wang Dakan, who lived during the reign of the Jiajing emperor in the Ming dynasty, first mentioned in classification of Water Margin that someone with the family name Wu, who was a native of Wuyu, a reference to the southern China region covering Jiajing, wrote the 100-chapter novel. Several scholars from the Ming and Qing dynasties, after Wang Dakan's time, also said that Wu was the author of Water Margin. During the early Republican era, Lu Kun and Yu Pingmo suggested that the simplified edition of Water Margin was written by Wu, while the traditional version was by Shi Nai'an. However, Huaikang Yeso in Shiyu disagree with Wang Dakan's view on the grounds that there were significant differences between Water Margin and Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Therefore, these two novels could not have been written by the same person. She felt that the draft of Water Margin was done by Wu Guanzhong and could have contained the chapters on the Outlaws' campaigns against Tuanhu, Wang Qing and Fang Lo, but not invaders from the Liao dynasty. Another theory states that Wu Guanzhong was from the Southern Song period vice the Ming dynasty. Cheng Muing suggested in notes on Water Margin that Wu lived in the late Southern Song dynasty and early Yuan era. Huang Linijin pointed out that the name of one of the compilers of Anecdotes of Jinkang was Nai'an, and suggested that this Nai'an, who lived during the Southern Song dynasty, was Shi Nai'an. He also felt that she wrote a simplified version of Water Margin, which is not the current edition. As we enter this new chapter, let's navigate the complexities of Shi Hui and unravel its multifaceted nature. Another candidate is Shi Hui, a Nanzi southern opera playwright who lived between the late Yuan dynasty and early Ming dynasty. Zhu Fuzhou of the Ming dynasty mentioned in Sanjia Kunla Whiten that Zhengyi, Shi Hui's courtesy name's intention in writing Water Margin was to entertain people, and not to convey any message. During the Qing dynasty, Shi Hui and Shi Nai'an were linked, suggesting that they are actually the same person. An unnamed writer wrote in Chuanmi Huikabima that Shi Nai'an's given name was actually Hui, courtesy name Junqing, and he was a native of Hangzhou. Sun Cady also wrote in Bibliography of Chinese Popular Fiction that Nai'an was Shi Hui's pseudonym. Later studies revealed that Water Margin contained lines in the Zhongsu and Zhejiang variety of Chinese, and that Yuguji, a work of Shi Hui, bore some resemblance to Water Margin, hence the theory that Water Margin was authored by Shi Hui. In the next phase, we'll be immersing ourselves in the realm of Gukan and exploring its real-world applications. Early scholars attributed the authorship to Gu Kun, a politician who lived in the Ming dynasty. Chen Difu, a late Ming dynasty scholar, mentioned in one Ihuro Bayan that Gu wrote water margin. Shi Nai'an added in Huangming Kongxin Lu that Gu mimicked the writing styles of romance of the Three Kingdoms and water margin to write Gu Jiajing Li Ji. Qian Huayan also stated in Zaigu that Gu edited water margin before. Hu Shi countered in his research on water margin that Gu Kun's name was used as a disguise for the real author of water margin. Dai Bufan had a differing view, as he suspected that Gu wrote water margin and then used Shi Nai'an to conceal his identity as the author of the novel. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of editions as we dive into its profound implications. The textual history of the novel is extraordinarily complex, for there are early editions of varying lengths, different parts, and variations. Not until the Ers were there studies which began to set these questions in order, and there is still disagreement. The earliest components of the water margin in manuscript copies were from the late 14th century. A printed copy dating from the Jiaqing reign titled Jingban Zongji Xuan is preserved in the Shanghai Library. The earliest extant complete printed edition of water margin is a 100-chapter version published in 1589. An edition with 120 chapters by Yang Dingjian has been preserved from the reign of the Wanli Emperor in the Ming dynasty. Yet other editions were published in the early Qing dynasty. The most widely read version is a truncated recension published by Jin Shengtan in 1643, reprinted many times, which became the standard text for later editions and most translations. Jin provided 3 introductions that praised the novel as a work of genius and inserted commentaries into the text that explained how to read the novel. He cut matter that he thought irrelevant, reduced the number of chapters to 70 by turning chapter 1 into a prologue, and added an ending in which all 108 heroes are executed. The various editions can be classified into simplified and complex. The simplified editions, edited for less sophisticated audiences, can contain all the events but in less detail. There is no way of knowing whether a simplified edition came before or was derived from another by adding or cutting text. Welcome to the next segment, where we explore simplified editions and its significance in our journey. The simplified editions include stories on the Outlaws being granted amnesty, followed by their campaigns against the Liao dynasty, Zhonhu, Wang Qing and Fang Lo, all the way until Song Jiong's death. At one point, the later chapters were compiled into a separate novel, titled Sequel to Water Margin, which is attributed to Wu Guantong. Known simplified editions of Water Margin include a 115-chapter edition, Masterpieces of the Han and Song Dynasties a 110-chapter edition, Chronicles of Heroes a 164-chapter edition, combined with Sequel to Water Margin. Get ready for a thought-provoking discussion as we delve into complex editions and its impact on our understanding. The complex editions are more descriptive and circulated more widely than their simplified counterparts. The 3 main versions of the complex editions are a 100-chapter, a 120-chapter and a 70-chapter edition. The most commonly modified parts of the complex editions are the stories on what happened after the Outlaws are granted amnesty. Chapter edition includes the Outlaws' campaigns against the Liao dynasty and Fang Lo after they have been granted amnesty. 120-chapter edition, an extended version of the 100-chapter edition, includes the Outlaws' campaigns against Zhonhu and Wang Qing chapters 91 to 110. 71-chapter edition, edited by Jin Shengtan in the late Ming dynasty. This edition uses chapter 1 as a prologue and ends at chapter 71 of the original version, and does not include the stories about the Outlaws being granted amnesty and their campaigns. In this chapter, we'll be unraveling the enigma of translations and discovering its transformative power. Water Margin has been translated into many languages. The book was translated into Manchu as Malendorf Sui Bith. Japanese translations date back to at least 1757, when the first volume of an early Suikoden Water Margin rendered in Japanese was printed. Other early adaptations include Take Ekari's 1773 Japanese water margin Honcho Suikoden, the 1783 Women's Water Margin Honor Suikoden, and South Kaiden's 1801 Chashingara water margin Chashingara Suikoden. In 1805, Kyokuti Beikin released a Japanese translation of the water margin illustrated by Hokusei. The book, called the New Illustrated Edition of the Suikoden Shinpin Suikoden, was a success during the Edo period and spurred a Japanese Suikoden craze. In 1827, publisher Kage Kichibe commissioned Utagawa Kuniyoshi to produce a series of woodblock prints illustrating the 108 heroes in water margin. The series, called 108 Heroes of the Water Margin Otsuzoku Suikoden Gokutsu Hyokuhachinen no Hitori, catapulted Kuniyoshi to fame. It also brought about a craze for multicolored pictorial tattoos that covered the entire body from the neck to the mid-thigh. Following the great commercial success of the Kuniyoshi series, other ukiyo-e artists were commissioned to produce prints of the water margin heroes, which began to be shown as Japanese heroes rather than the original Chinese personages. Among these later series was Yoshitoshi's series of 50 designs in Chuban size, which are darker than Kuniyoshi's and feature strange ghosts and monsters. A recent Japanese translation is. The book was first translated into Thai in 1867, originally in Samad Thai paper book format, consisting of 82 volumes in total. It was printed in Western style in 1879 and distributed commercially by Dan Beach Bradley, an American Protestant missionary to Siam. Jacques Dars translated the 70-chapter version into French in 1978, reprinted several times. Pearl South. Buck was the first English translator of the entire 70-chapter version, titled All Men Are Brothers and published in 1933. The book was well received by the American public. However, it was also criticized for its errors, such as the mistranslation of Lu Zixin's nickname Flowery Monk as Priest Hua. In 1937, another complete translation appeared, titled Water Margin, by J. H. Jackson, edited by Fang Lo Tien. A translation of Jin's preface was published in 1935 by the Shanghai Journal, the China Critic. Later translations of the 70-chapter version include Chinese naturalist scholar Sidney Shapiro's Outlaws of the Marsh 1980, which also does not include the verse. However, as it was published during the Cultural Revolution, this edition received little attention then. It is a translation of a combination of both the 70-chapter and 100-chapter versions. The most recent translation, titled The Marshes of Mount Liang by Alex and John Dent Young, is a 5-volume translation of the 120-chapter version. It includes a prologue but omits the foreword by Shi Nai'an and some passages related to the official details of the Ming dynasty. These translations differ in the selection of texts and completeness. The Jackson translation is the only translation to contain Shi Nai'an's foreword. The Shapiro translation omits the prologue, the foreword, and most of the poems. The Dent Young translation omits the author's foreword and the passages concerning the Ming dynasty administration, and the translators admitted to compromising some details and retaining inconsistencies in their brief note on the translation. In the upcoming section, we'll be shining a light on literature. Jin Pingmei is an erotic novel written under the pen name Lanling Weoi Sheng, the scoffing scholar of Lanling in the late Ming dynasty. The novel is based on the story of Wusong avenging his brother in water margin, but the focus is on Zimen King's sexual relations with other women, including Pan Jinlian. In water margin, Zimen King is killed by Wusong for murdering the latter's brother, while in Jin Pingmei he dies a horrible death due to an accidental overdose of aphrodisiac pills. Shu Hao Yuan, which roughly translates to the later story of water margin, is a novel written by Chen Chen in the Qing dynasty. The story is set after the end of the original water margin, with Li Jun as the protagonist. It tells of how the surviving Liangshan heroes are forced to become outlaws again due to corruption in the government. When the armies of the Jurchen-ruled Jin dynasty invade the Song dynasty, the heroes rise up to defend their nation from the invaders. The heroes eventually decide to leave China for good and sail to distant lands. Apart from the surviving Liangshan heroes from the original novel, Xu Haoyuan also introduces new characters such as Huo Rong's son Huo Fengchen, Zhu Ning's son Zhu Sheng, and Huan Fu's son Huan Yu. Dang Caozi, which roughly translates to the Tale of Eliminating Bandits, is a novel written by Yu Wanchen during the reign of the Dagang Emperor in the Qing dynasty. Yu disagreed that the Liangshan outlaws are loyal and righteous heroes, and was determined to portray them as ruthless mass murderers and destroyers. Hence he wrote Dang Caozi. The novel, which starts at the Grand Assembly of the 108 Outlaws at Liangshan Marsh, tells of how the outlaws plundered and pillaged cities before they are eventually eliminated by government forces led by Zhang Shui and his lieutenants Chen Xizhen and Yun Shanbio. The Qing dynasty writer Qian Kai intertwined the life stories of Yufi and the outlaws Lin Chong and Lu Juni in the story of Yufi 1684. He stated that the latter were former students of the general's martial arts tutor, Xu Tong. However, literary critic Celsius T. Shaw commented that the connection was a fictional one created by the author. The Republican-era folktale Swordplay Under the Moon by Wang Sheitang further intertwines Yufi's history with the outlaws by adding Wusong to the list of Zhao's 4 students. The tale is set in the background of Wusong's mission to Kaifeng prior to the murder of his brother. Xu tutors Wu in the rowing dragon style of swordplay during his 1-month stay in the capital city. It also said that Xu is a sworn brother of Lu Zishan and shares the same nickname with the executioner turned outlaw Kai Fu. Frank Chin's novel, Donald Duck, contains many references to the water margin. Song Jiong and Li Ku make several appearances in the protagonist's dreams. Rise of the Water Margin is a novel launched in 2022 by the American author Christopher Bates, in which all of the Chinese characters and their approximate character arcs are 21st century modernizations of people in the water margin. In this cyber thriller, the characters of Lin Chong, Liu Dao, Gao Qiu, Gao Yanni, Zhang Zhenyang, Fuan, Jiajing, Chai Jin, Wang Lun, Zhu Gu, Zhao Ji, Li Shishi, and many others appear. The location of Liangshan is a deserted ghost city known to its investors as Mount Liang Swamp, repurposed as a hacker enclave. Adiujical wrote Shin Suikoden, which roughly translates to New Tales from the Water Margin. The Water Outlaws, a novel by South L. Huang, is a gender-flipped version of the story in which the outlaws are queer women. In addition to its colossal popularity in China, Water Margin has been identified as one of the most influential works in the development of early modern Japanese literature. With our foundation established, it's time to explore comics and its relevance to our overarching theme. Water Margin is referred to in numerous Japanese manga such as Tetsuya Hara and Borenson's Fist of the North Star, and Masami Kurumada's Fino Koja, Otokozoka, and Saint Seiya. In both works of fiction, characters bearing the same stars of the water margin characters as personal emblems of destiny are featured prominently. A Japanese manga called Akabushi, Ibn Suikoden, based on the story of Water Margin, was serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump. A Hong Kong manhwa series based on Water Margin was also created by the artist Li Qiqing. A Raimajin series based on Water Margin, 108 Fighters, was created by Andy Seto. Between 1978 and 1988, the Italian artist Madness published 4 acts of his work I Briganti, which places the Water Margin story in a setting that mixes Chinese, Western, and science fiction in Flash Gordon-style elements. Before his death in 1996, the 4 completed acts were published in a volume by Granota Press. 2 following acts were planned but never completed. In 2007, Asiabook Books published a graphic narrative version of portions of the novel. Brace yourself for a captivating discussion on film as we explore its nuances and implications. Most film adaptations of Water Margin were produced by Hong Kong's Shaw Brothers studio and mostly released in the Ers and Ers. They include The Water Margin 1972, directed by Chang Che and others, Delightful Forest 1972, directed by Chang Che again and starring Ti Lung as Wusong. Pursuit 1972, directed by Kang Cheng and starring Elliot Ngoc as Lin Chong. All Men Are Brothers 1975, a sequel to The Water Margin 1972 directed by Chang Che and others, and Tiger Killer 1982, directed by Li Hon-Sion and starring Ti Lung as Wusong again. Other non-Shaw Brothers production include All Men Are Brothers, Blood of the Leopard, also known as Water Margin, True Colors of Heroes 1992, which centers on the story of Lin Chong, Lu Zixin and Gao Qiu, starring Tony Leung Ko-fei, Elvis Tsui and others, and Troublesome Night 16 2002, a Hong Kong horror comedy film which spoofs the story of Wusong avenging his brother. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of television as we dive into its profound implications. Television series directly based on Water Margin include Nippon Television's The Water Margin 1973, which was filmed in mainland China and later released in other countries outside Japan. Outlaws of the Marsh 1983, which won a Golden Eagle Award. The Water Margin 1998, produced by Zhang Jizong and featuring fight choreography by Yuan Wuping. All Men Are Brothers 2011, directed by Kuk Kwok Luing and featuring actors from mainland China, Hong Kong and Taiwan. Animations adapted from Water Margin include Giant Robo, the animation 1992, an anime series based on Mitsutaro Yokoyama's manga series, Outlaws 1998, another cartoon series which makes several references to the novel, Hero 108 2010, a Flash animated series produced by various companies and shown on Cartoon Network. Galaxy Divine Wind Jinrega, an anime in the series planned for a 2016 broadcast, has also cited Water Margin as its inspiration. The 2004 Hong Kong television series Shades of Truth, produced by TVB, features 3 characters from the novel who are reincarnated into present-day Hong Kong as a triad boss and 2 police officers respectively. In this part of the video, we'll be diving deep into video games and unraveling its profound impact. Video games based on the novel include Konami's console RPG series Suikoden and Koei's strategy game Bandit Kings of Ancient China. Other games with characters based on the novel or were partly inspired by it include Jade Empire, which features a character Black Whirlwind who is based on Viku, Data East's Outlaws of the Lost Dynasty, which was also released under the titles Suika Inbo and Dark Legend, Shin Megami Tensei, Imagine. There is also a beat-em-up game Shufeng Chun, created by Never Ending Soft Team and published by Kintech in 1996. It was re-released for the Mega Drive and in arcade version by Warlap in 1999. An English version titled Water Margin, The Tales of Clouds and Winds by Pico Interactive translated and released in 2015. Some enemy sprites are taken from other beat-em-ups and modified, including Knights of the Round, Golden Axe and Streets of Rage. In the upcoming section, we'll be dissecting music and exploring its implications in greater detail. Yanpoxi, a Pinyin form of the story focused on the concubine Yanpoxi, was performed by Bei Yashuang and her company in Shanghai in the ERS. Water Marginized 2007 is a folk reggae narrative by Chan Xuan. It tells the story of a present-day jailbird who travels to Liangshan Marsh in hope of joining the outlaw band, only to find that Song Jiong and his men have all taken bureaucratic jobs in the ruling party. 108 Heroes is a 3-part Peking rock opera first shown in 2007, 2011 and 2014 respectively, formed through a collaborative effort between the Hong Kong Arts Festival, the Shanghai International Arts Festival, Taiwan Contemporary Legend Theatre, and the Shanghai Theatre Academy. The show combines traditional Peking opera singing, costumes, martial arts and dance with elements of modern music, costume and dance. With our foundation established, it's time to explore other and its relevance to our overarching theme. The temple fair in southern Taiwan Songjiang battle array is based on the acrobatic fighting from water margin. Characters from the story often appear on money-suited playing cards, which are thought to be the ancestor of both modern playing cards and Moyong tiles. These cards are also known as water margin cards. The trading card game, Yu-Gi-Oh!, has an archetype based on the 108 heroes known as the Fire Fist, known as Flame Star in the OCG, NC, where the monsters, aside from Horse Prince, Lion Emperor, and Spirit, are based on those heroes. The Jurchen chief and Con Nurich read the Chinese novels Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Water Margin, learning all he knew about Chinese military and political strategies from them. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video.